trying to reach you. Right now, this very second, not through some Hollywood seance or dramatic paranormal event, but through something so subtle, so ordinary that you've probably dismissed it 100 times. That song that randomly played 3 times yesterday, the one they loved. That sudden smell of their perfume in an empty room. That moment when you could swear you felt them standing right behind you, only to turn and find nothing but air. You're not imagining it. You're not going crazy. And according to Edgar Cayce, the man who documented over 14,000 readings about the soul's journey after death, you're not wrong. They are trying to tell you something. But here's what nobody prepared you for. The first year after someone dies isn't what any religion taught you. It's not what the movies show. It's not even what most spiritual teachers will admit. During those first 12 months, the soul goes through something so profound, so shocking, that when Cayce first discovered it, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. And once you understand what really happens in that first crucial year, you'll never think about death or life the same way again. Because the truth is, they're not resting in peace. They're not floating on clouds. They're not even gone in any real sense. They're going through the most intense transformation of their existence. A process, a journey, a complete revolution of consciousness. And the wildest part, you're still connected to them through every single moment of it. The journey begins. It all begins with a moment that Cayce described thousands of times, yet it never ceased to amaze him. The moment of separation. But not the separation you think. You see, when someone passes, there's this assumption that they immediately float up to some distant heaven or descend to some place of judgment. That's the story we've been told. That's the comfort we seek. Clean, simple, final. But Cayce saw something else entirely. In reading after reading, he described souls who were confused. Can you imagine that? You've just died, and instead of angels with harps or pearly gates, you're standing there, if you can call it standing, completely aware, completely conscious, but something's different. You can see your body. There it is, below you, around you. The geography is strange now. You can see the people crying. You want to comfort them. You try to speak, but they can't hear you. You try to touch them, but your hand passes through. And then it hits you. The most shocking realization of your entire existence, which has now extended beyond existence itself. You're still you. Completely, entirely, unmistakably you. With all your memories, all your feelings, all your thoughts. Death didn't erase you. It just changed your address. But here's where Cayce's revelations become almost unbearable in their truth. Most souls don't leave immediately. They can't. Not because they're trapped, let me be clear about that. Not because they're earthbound spirits like in some horror movie. No, they stay because love holds them. Because concern anchors them. Because there are things they need to understand about their own life before they can move forward. Think about that for a moment. Really think about it. Every person you've lost, everyone you've mourned, according to Cayce, they spent days, sometimes weeks, right there with you, watching you grieve, wanting desperately to tell you they're okay, learning, perhaps for the first time, how much they truly meant to you. The first 3 days. Cayce was specific about this, almost disturbingly specific. The first 3 days after death are crucial, not for religious reasons, not because of some arbitrary spiritual law, but because of consciousness itself. During these 3 days, the soul experiences what Cayce called the review. Now, you've probably heard of life reviews. That moment where your whole life flashes before your eyes. But this isn't that. This is different. This is deeper. Imagine suddenly being able to see every single moment of your life, not from your perspective, but from the perspective of everyone you ever encountered. every word you said in anger. You now feel the wound it caused. Every kindness you showed, you experience the warmth it created in another's heart. Every time you walked past someone who needed help, you feel their disappointment, their continued struggle. But, and this is crucial, there's no judgment in this. No cosmic scorekeeper tallying up your sins and good deeds. Instead, there's something far more powerful. Understanding. Complete, total, devastating understanding. One woman came to Cayce, desperate to know about her husband who had died suddenly in an accident. Cayce went into his trance, and when he emerged, he had tears in his eyes. "He wants you to know," Cayce said, "that he finally understands why you always asked him to drive carefully. He sees now, every time you said it, you were saying, 'I love you.' He never heard it that way before, but he hears it now. Can you imagine? All those little misunderstandings, all those missed connections, all those times we failed to see the love behind the worry, the fear behind the anger. Suddenly, it all becomes clear." The 40-day transition. But then, something extraordinary happens around the 40th day. Cayce noticed this pattern again and again, and interestingly, it aligns with many ancient traditions. Orthodox Christianity, Tibetan Buddhism, even certain indigenous American beliefs all mark 40 days as significant after death. According to Cayce, this is when the real journey begins. The soul starts to, how do I explain this? They start to vibrate differently. You know how ice becomes water and water becomes steam. It's still H2O, but its molecular structure, its very essence of being, transforms. The soul undergoes something similar. They begin to shed the denser energies that tied them to physical existence. But here's what will really blow your mind. This isn't a passive process. The soul has to choose it. They have to actively participate in their own liberation, and some souls, they resist. Not because they're bad or stuck or cursed, but because they're worried about you. They see you suffering. They see you making mistakes. They want to help, to guide, to protect. And this very love, this very compassion, becomes the thing that holds them in a space between worlds. Cayce described one reading where a mother who had passed was so concerned about her teenage daughter that she couldn't fully transition. She was literally holding herself in a lower vibrational state to stay close to Earth, to somehow influence and protect her child. The tragedy? Her daughter was spiraling partly because she couldn't feel her mother's presence. The mother's very effort to stay close was creating a barrier to the communication the daughter desperately needed. It's a cosmic catch-22 that breaks your heart when you really understand it. The learning halls. Now, here's where Cayce's visions become almost fantastic, yet somehow ring with such truth that thousands have found comfort in them. After this 40-day period, souls who have released their earthly attachments move into what Cayce called the learning halls, or the schools of consciousness. But don't picture classrooms with desks and chalkboards. This is nothing like earthly education. Imagine suddenly having access to the answers to every question you ever had. Why did that relationship fail? You see it now, all the soul contracts, all the lessons planned before birth, all the growth that came from the pain. Why did you struggle with that particular challenge your whole life? You understand now. It was strengthening something in you that you'll need for what comes next. But more than that, you begin to see the connections, the vast web of souls you're connected to. That stranger who smiled at you on your worst day. They were sent. That book that fell off the shelf at exactly the right moment. Orchestrated. That wrong turn that led to meeting your best friend. Planned before you were even born. The soul begins to understand that what we call life is actually a highly coordinated dance of consciousness, with each soul playing their part in the evolution of all souls. One of Cayce's most moving readings involved a man who had been bitter his whole life about being abandoned by his father. After death, in these learning halls, he discovered that his father's soul had agreed to play that role, to be the abandoner, because it would trigger a search for spiritual truth that would ultimately lead to the man becoming a healer who would help thousands. The father's soul had accepted the role of villain in one life to serve a greater purpose. The sacrifice of it, the love of it. It changes everything about how we see our wounds, doesn't it? The 6-month threshold. At around 6 months, something remarkable happens. The soul reaches what Cayce described as the first plateau of understanding. They've processed their most recent life, understood its purpose, seen its connections, and now they face a choice. Some souls choose to move higher into realms of consciousness that Cayce admitted were difficult to describe in human language. Colors that don't exist in our spectrum. Sounds that aren't sounds but pure meaning. Experiences of unity that make our deepest meditations look like child's play. But others choose to stay closer to the earth plane. Not because they're stuck, but because they've accepted a role. They become what many traditions call guides or guardian spirits. And here's the thing that should make every one of us pay attention. These souls often try to communicate with us most strongly around this 6-month mark. Why? Because they've gained enough understanding to truly help, but they're still close enough to remember what it's like to be human, to struggle, to doubt, to fear. Those signs you've been dismissing, that song that keeps playing at exactly the right moment, that dream that felt too real to be just a dream. According to Cayce, these intensify around the 6-month anniversary. The soul has learned how to navigate the veil between worlds. They've figured out how to send messages through the static of physical reality. But we often miss them because we're looking for the wrong things. We want dramatic signs, lights flickering, objects moving. But souls communicate through synchronicity, through feeling, through sudden knowing. That random thought to call someone who then tells you exactly what you needed to hear. That might not be random. That sudden urge to take a different route home that saves you from an accident. Perhaps not so sudden. That wave of peace that washes over you in your darkest moment. Maybe, just maybe, it's exactly what you think it is. The anniversary, a cosmic birthday. And then comes the 1-year mark, what Cayce called the cosmic birthday, the soul's first complete cycle in their new state of being. By this point, according to the readings, the soul has made fundamental decisions about their journey. They've chosen their level of involvement with Earth. They've selected their role in the greater cosmic plan. They've begun preparing for either their next incarnation or their service in the spirit realms. But here's what's beautiful and heartbreaking about this anniversary. It's often when the most profound communications happen. Not because the soul is closer, they're actually further along their journey, but because we, the living, are finally ready to receive the message. You see, grief is like static on a radio. In those first months, we're so consumed by loss, by pain, by the shocking absence of physical presence, that we can't tune into the subtle frequencies where souls communicate. But by the 1-year mark, the acute grief has often softened into something else, a gentle sadness mixed with acceptance. And in that softer state, we become receptive. Cayce documented countless cases of people receiving unmistakable signs on these anniversaries. Not just subjective feelings, but objective events. A woman whose husband loved cardinals suddenly having a cardinal tap on her window every morning for a week starting on the anniversary. A man whose daughter died finding her favorite childhood toy, lost for 20 years, on the exact date, in a place it couldn't possibly be. These aren't coincidences. According to Cayce, they're orchestrated communications requiring enormous effort from the soul to manifest. It's their way of saying, I made it, I'm okay. and I'm still connected to you. If you've experienced something like this, something that defied explanation around an anniversary or significant date, share it in the comments. Put it next to stories that resonate with you. Sometimes the greatest comfort comes from knowing others have walked this path too. The shocking truth about grief. But now I need to tell you something that might be hard to hear. Something Cayce discovered that challenges everything we think we know about grief and letting go. Your grief, it affects them, not in the way you might think. They don't suffer because you're sad. They understand sadness. They feel the love within it. But there's a particular kind of grief. The kind that refuses to let go, that demands their return, that rages against the natural order. This kind of grief creates what Cayce called a magnetic pull on the soul. Imagine trying to graduate from school while your parents stand outside the classroom, weeping, begging you to come back to kindergarten. You love them, you want to comfort them, but you also need to move forward. You have lessons to learn, experiences to integrate, growth to achieve. This is the position we put souls in when we cannot release them with love. One of Cayce's most profound readings involved a mother who had been grieving her son for 3 years. Every night, she would cry herself to sleep, begging him to come back, to give her a sign, to not leave her alone. Cayce, in trance, spoke in the son's voice. "Mother, your tears are chains that bind me. Love me, remember me, but free me. I have work to do, and so do you." The mother was initially angry. How dare someone suggest her grief was wrong? But then she began to understand. Her son wasn't asking her not to love him or miss him. He was asking her to transform her grief into something else, into purpose, into growth, into a bridge between worlds rather than a prison. The preparation phase. Between months 6 and 12, something else is happening that Cayce revealed in his readings. The soul is preparing. But preparing for what? This is where it gets really interesting, and maybe a little controversial. According to Cayce, most souls begin planning their next incarnation during this period. Not because they have to. Let me be really clear about that. There's no cosmic force pushing them back into body, but because they want to. Because they see, from their expanded perspective, exactly what experiences they need for their soul's evolution. They start selecting their next parents, their next challenges, their next gifts and limitations. And here's the mind-blowing part. They often choose to incarnate with the same souls they knew before, but in different configurations. Your mother in this life might be your daughter in the next. Your worst enemy might become your beloved spouse. The child you lost might return as your grandchild. The configurations change, but the connections remain. Cayce described one reading where a couple who had lost a baby daughter were told she would return to them, not as their child, but as their grandchild through their son. 20 years later, their son had a daughter who exhibited extraordinary connections to the grandparents, knowing things she couldn't possibly know, showing preferences and fears that exactly matched the baby who had died. But not all souls choose immediate reincarnation. Some spend years, decades, even centuries in what Cayce called the interim states, places of learning, service, and preparation. They become teachers for newly arrived souls. They work as guides for the living. They participate in what Cayce described as the greater work, the evolution of consciousness itself. The communication codes. Now, let me share something practical, something you can actually use. Cayce discovered that souls develop what he called communication codes with their loved ones, usually establishing these fully by the end of the first year. These aren't random. They're specifically chosen based on shared memories, inside jokes, meaningful symbols from the relationship. A soul might consistently use a specific song that had meaning to your relationship, a particular bird or animal you both loved. Numbers that were significant. Birthdays, anniversaries, meaningful dates. Scents that trigger specific memories, electrical disturbances in particular patterns. But here's the key. These signs are invitations to connection, not demands for attention. When you recognize them, the appropriate response isn't grief or desperate attempts to hold on. It's acknowledgement, a simple, I see you, I feel you, I love you, and I'm okay. Because that's what they need to know. That you're okay, that you're living, that their death hasn't destroyed you, but is transforming you. One man told Cayce he kept finding dimes in impossible places. His locked car, inside sealed food packages, in the pocket of a jacket he hadn't worn in years. Cayce smiled and said, "Your father collected dimes during the Depression, didn't he? He's showing you that even in scarcity, abundance finds a way. Stop looking for dimes and start looking for the abundance he's pointing you toward." The man broke down crying. He'd been so focused on his financial fears since his father's death that he'd closed himself off from opportunities. The dimes weren't just signs, they were teachings. The evolution of love. Here's something that might completely change how you see your relationships with those who've passed. According to Cayce, love doesn't just continue after death. It evolves. Think about it. When someone is free from the ego, from fear, from all the psychological defenses we build in life, what's left? Pure essence. Pure love. The love they have for you isn't diminished by death. It's purified by it. All those times they couldn't say, "I love you" because of pride or pain or simple human limitation? Gone. All those moments they wanted to support you but didn't know how. They know now, all the love they felt but couldn't express. It flows freely now. Cayce described this beautifully in a reading for a woman whose husband had been emotionally distant their entire marriage. "He loves you now," Cayce said, "in the way he always wanted to but couldn't. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how. Now he knows, and that love is surrounding you constantly, whether you feel it or not. But here's the thing, and this is so important. We have to be open to receiving this evolved love. If we're stuck in anger about how they were in life, if we're frozen in resentment about what they didn't give us, we can't receive what they're offering now. Forgiveness isn't just for them. It's the key that opens the door to this continued connection. The unfinished business myth. Let me destroy a myth right now that causes so much unnecessary pain. The idea that souls are stuck because of unfinished business. Cayce was clear about this. Souls don't get trapped because they didn't finish their taxes or say goodbye or complete some earthly task. That's Hollywood, not spiritual reality. What can delay a soul's progression is unfinished understanding. Not unfinished business, but unfinished lessons. And here's the beautiful part. They can complete these lessons from the other side, often more easily than they could in life. That forgiveness you never gave. They can receive it now, that conversation you never had. You can have it now, not in words, but in consciousness. That love you never expressed. Express it now. They'll receive it more purely than they ever could have through the filter of human personality. Cayce told one woman who was tormented because she'd argued with her mother the day before she died. "Your mother understood before she even left her body. The argument was the catalyst for her release. She used your anger as energy to let go. What you see as failure, she experienced as gift." This is the level of reversal, of profound reframing that happens when we understand the soul's journey. Nothing is wasted. Everything serves. The waiting rooms. Around month 8 or 9, Cayce described something fascinating. Souls entering what he called the waiting rooms, or the preparation chambers. These aren't physical places. Nothing is physical where they are, but states of consciousness where final preparations are made. For souls planning reincarnation, this is where they meet with what many traditions call the council or the planners, evolved beings who help orchestrate the complex web of incarnations. It's like a vast cosmic chess game where every move affects thousands of other moves. But for souls choosing to remain in spirit, this is where they receive their assignments, their roles in the greater work. Some become what we might call guardian angels. Others work with collective human consciousness, inspiring artists, musicians, writers. Still others focus on planetary healing or species evolution. And some choose to work with death itself, becoming welcomers who help other souls cross over. Cayce described numerous instances where people near death reported seeing deceased loved ones who came to guide them. These aren't hallucinations. They're souls who've chosen this sacred work of escort. Imagine that. Your grandmother, your friend, your child. They might be the first face someone sees when they leave their body, offering comfort, recognition, and guidance in that most frightening and sacred moment. The birthday gift. As the first anniversary approaches, something beautiful often happens. Cayce called it the birthday gift, a final clear communication before the soul moves more fully into their new existence. This isn't goodbye. Let me be really clear about that. It's more like graduation. They're moving to a new level, a new phase, but the connection remains. It just changes form. These anniversary communications are often the most evidential, the most undeniable. People report finding objects that were lost, receiving messages through strangers who couldn't possibly know the significance of what they're saying, having dreams so vivid, so specific, that they can't be dismissed as mere imagination. But here's what you need to understand. These gifts aren't just for comfort. They're instructions. They're pointing you toward your own growth, your own evolution, your own purpose. That book that falls off the shelf? Read it. That person you suddenly think of? Call them. That place you feel drawn to visit? Go. These aren't random impulses. They're guidance from someone who can now see the bigger picture of your life. If you're finding this information valuable, if it's helping you understand your own experiences or prepare for what's to come, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell too. I share content about the deeper mysteries of existence that mainstream spirituality often ignores. And honestly, knowing you're out there, seeking truth alongside me, it keeps me going on this path. The sacred contract. Now, here's something Cayce revealed that almost nobody talks about: the sacred contract between the living and the dead. This isn't some formal agreement. It's an organic understanding that develops over the first year. The soul learns how to work with you from their side, and you learn how to work with them from yours. Together, you become a bridge between worlds. But this requires something from you. It requires you to live. Really live. Not just survive your grief, but transform through it. Because here's the secret. They can only work through your aliveness. Your joy becomes a channel for their influence. Your creativity becomes a vehicle for their inspiration. Your love becomes a conduit for their continued presence. When you shut down, when you stop living, you're not honoring them. You're closing the very channels through which they can continue to participate in the physical world. Cayce was adamant about this. The greatest gift you can give someone who's passed is to live fully, love freely, and grow constantly. Your evolution is their evolution. Your joy is their joy. Your fulfillment of purpose validates their role in shaping who you've become. The transformation protocol. So how do we use this knowledge? How do we transform from grievers to bridges, from mourners to co-creators with souls on the other side? First, acknowledge the continuing bond. Stop thinking of them as gone and start thinking of them as transformed. They're not in the past. They're in a different dimension of the present. Second, develop your sensitivity. Meditation isn't just spiritual practice. It's communication technology. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. The stiller your mind, the more you can perceive. Those subtle impressions you dismiss? Start paying attention to them. Third, live with purpose. Ask yourself if they can see the bigger picture now, if they understand why things happened the way they did, what would they want for you? Not what they wanted when they were limited by human perspective, but what they want now, seeing from an elevated view. Fourth, release with love. This doesn't mean stop missing them. It means stop holding them with desperation. Love them free. Love them forward. Love them into their highest evolution while you grow into yours. And finally, become the bridge. Share their stories, not as tragedies, but as transformations. Honor their memory, not by freezing in the past, but by carrying their best qualities forward into the future. The first-year teaching. The most profound thing Cayce taught about the first year after death. It's not really about the dead at all. It's about us. The soul goes through its journey regardless. Yes, our grief can affect them, our love can reach them, our growth can free them, but ultimately, their evolution is assured. They're held by forces of love and wisdom far greater than our human understanding. But us? We're faced with a choice. We can let death be just an ending, a period at the end of a sentence. Or we can let it be a transformation, a comma in an ongoing conversation. The first year after someone dies isn't just their transition period, it's ours. It's when we decide, will we be victims of loss or students of love? Will we be prisoners of grief or pioneers of connection? Will we let death have the last word, or will we discover that love speaks a language that transcends the grave? Every single person watching this will face this choice. Maybe you're facing it right now. Maybe you're anticipating it. Maybe you're long past it, but still carrying the weight. Here's what Edgar Cayce wanted you to know. Death is not the opposite of life. It's the opposite of birth. Life continues. Consciousness continues. Love absolutely continues. The ultimate revelation. And this brings us to the most important truth, the one that changes everything once you really grasp it. The souls who've completed their first year, who've moved through all these phases, who've gained this expanded perspective, they consistently communicate one message through every reading Cayce ever did. One truth they desperately want us to understand. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And death is just returning home to remember who we really are. But here's the kicker. We don't have to wait until death to remember. Every moment of love, every act of forgiveness, every choice to grow rather than stagnate, every time we choose connection over separation, we're touching that same truth they've discovered. They're not waiting for us on the other side. They're working with us right here, right now, helping us wake up to the truth while we're still in bodies, still in time, still able to touch and heal and create in this dense, beautiful, difficult, physical world. The first year after death is their curriculum, but living with the awareness of that curriculum, that's ours. The call to transformation. So here's my challenge to you. Whether you've lost someone recently or long ago, whether you're grieving or celebrating, whether you believe every word I've said or you're skeptical of all of it, try this. Tonight, before you sleep, simply say their name. Not in grief, not in desperation, but in acknowledgement. Say, I know you continue, I know you're growing, I know you're free, and I'm choosing to live fully, love freely, and grow constantly, not in spite of losing you, but because of having known you. Then pay attention, not for dramatic signs, but for subtle shifts, the unexpected peace, the random insight, the sudden knowing, the inexplicable comfort. Because here's the final secret. They're not waiting for you to die to reunite with you. The reunion is available now, in consciousness, in love, in the eternal present that exists beyond the illusion of separation. The first year after death is just the beginning, for them and for us. The question isn't whether consciousness survives. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? How will it change how you live today, right now, in this precious moment where you still have breath, still have choice, still have the incredible opportunity to love in a body, with hands that can hold, voices that can speak, hearts that can choose? Your loved ones have graduated to a new form of existence, but you're still in school. And maybe, just maybe, they're not just our departed. They're our teachers, showing us through their transformation that death is not the end of the story. It's just the turn of a page. And the next chapter, that's being written right now by how you choose to live with this knowledge. If this message resonated with you, if it's helped you see death and life in a new way, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment with your own experiences. Your stories might be exactly what another soul needs to read today. And remember, every time you engage with this content, every time you share these truths, you're helping build a bridge between worlds. We're not just viewers and creators here. We're consciousness explorers, pushing the boundaries of what it means to be human, what it means to love, what it means to continue. The first year after death is sacred. But so is this moment. So is your breath. So is your choice to keep growing, keep loving, keep becoming. Your departed aren't gone. They're graduated, and they're waiting, not for you to join them, but for you to realize you already have. The veil isn't as thick as we think. Love is the frequency that penetrates it. And consciousness is the bridge that makes separation impossible. Welcome to the truth. Welcome to the continuation. Welcome to understanding that death is not the end. It's just the beginning of finally understanding what life really is. And now you know what they know. The question is, what will you do with it? The answer to that question doesn't just change your life, it transforms your eternity. And it starts right now.